And now Malcolm Webb joins us from Sidon in southern Lebanon. Malcolm, you've been speaking to people who have fled the south. Tell us where you are and what they're saying.
Well, this is a university. Normally there'd be students here studying, but that's not been the case since the start of last month. People here say that when bombs started dropping in their towns and villages in the first days of March, they fled for their lives. Many of them stayed in the streets until places like this opened. And the university here, of course, when that happened, had to tell all of the students to go home. And that's the same for about 4 public universities here in Sidon. It's a city of about 500,000 people, and also a couple of dozen schools. So that means since the beginning of March, none of these students have attended. Some are learning online, but for many school children, that means no education at all. So the people staying here, many of them can't go home because their towns and villages are now occupied, have been destroyed, or are even being destroyed right now as the Israeli army continues with its demolitions of villages. But then Lebanon's also facing a growing education problem as well, because now for about 7 weeks, many children have not had any education at all. For people here, I mean, many of them, their homes no longer exist. They're piles of rubble, and as long as they don't have anywhere to live, they need to stay here. And as long as they stay here, education has been brought to a standstill.
Now, Malcolm, the ceasefire has been extended, but it's already been violated once by Israeli forces at least. So are people confident that they might be able to go back to their homes during this 3-week period?
Well, many people have been waiting so far to see how the ceasefire will hold. And the extension of it alone may not give people a great deal more confidence, given, as you say, the violence has continued almost every day, with Israel shelling airstrikes in what it calls the yellow zone. Also reports of some strikes beyond that. But this yellow zone, of course, is something that Israel has created, and people forced from their homes don't feel safe when the invader appears to be making up its own rules. And there's also very many of these people have the problem that they're returning to villages where there's no electricity and no water, which is widely reported has been targeted by Israeli forces, although Israel denies it. Many homes, of course, reduced to rubble, but those that are still standing, if they're in remote villages in the hills, but there's no water supply, then of course it's almost impossible for people to live there, not least with the added risk of a possible resumption of violence and bombing if the diplomatic moves don't produce lasting results.
That's Malcolm Webb in Sidon. Thank you. Noor Uday is following developments in Israel. She's near Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. In many ways, Noor, a longer ceasefire allows the Israelis to cement their occupation within southern Lebanon, and we've seen violations of this ceasefire. So does it make a big difference to Israel? How's it being seen within the Israeli military and the Israeli political establishment?
Doesn't really make a lot of difference, save for the fact, Imran, that accepting this extension, which was announced by the American president, is a goodwill gesture to Donald Trump. That's really the way that the Israeli government is dealing with this effort. They don't see a clear path towards an agreement because they understand that the Lebanese government has very little to give. What is being demanded of it is nearly impossible, which is the forced disarming of Hezbollah. The Israeli army admits that it cannot do it even by prolonged military campaign. This has to be done, house to house and across Lebanon, and only the Lebanese government can do it. So for now, buying time doesn't really stop the Israeli army from doing what it's already doing, demolishing the villages in southern Lebanon. About 20 have been condemned to disappearing, Shiite villages mostly. And in the meantime, they have the U.S. Okay to do all of that while talking about a possible peace with Lebanon.
Well, let's talk about the peace talks. Round two is coming up. The ambassadors are going to meet again. Donald Trump seems to be very confident that he's going to get Netanyahu and Joseph Aoun into the White House at some point during the next 3 weeks. So does that figure a breakthrough in the talks, or is it simply, optimism, do you think?
I think it's a little bit of both. Israel has been very tight-lipped about what is going on and what was said by the U.S. president for fear of upsetting Donald Trump. But having said that, what Israel can live with is, a lot of conditions that they know already that the Lebanese government cannot live with. We, monitor and follow Israeli discussions in the media, statements by Israeli officials. They understand that forcing the Lebanese government to disarm Hezbollah could plunge the country into a civil war. The former commander of the Northern Front in Israel has said on TV that the price of a civil war in Lebanon would be less than the price of an Israeli assault on Lebanon. So the Lebanese government should just get on with it. No expectation really in Israel that a big breakthrough would happen. And in any case, right now, Israel is not losing much. It is holding on to occupied Lebanese territory, using it as leverage, not upsetting the U.S. administration, and, maintaining this military doctrine of decimating areas in another country bordering it, using that vacated area as a so-called buffer zone and asking for its demands in the meantime. And I hope or wait and see approach, especially given the situation with the U.S.-Iran talks, because they are tied, whether the Israeli prime minister can admit that or not.
That's Noor Uday live for us from near Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Thank you.